Good evening, Fort Lee. It's Mayor Mark Sokolich with our second town hall teleconference. By all accounts, there are many, many residents that have signed in and dialed in, so that's great. The more folks that participate, the better. As I said, this will be our second town hall teleconference. We plan on doing more in the future. With me this evening, again, is our OEM director, Brian Drumgoole, our Fort Lee Police Chief, Matt Hinsey, our Fort Lee Health Officer, Jill Scarpa, and our Borough Administrator this evening, Al Restaino. These folks, just so everybody knows, is a mere sampling of what I believe to be probably the best task force in the state of New Jersey, and especially the best task force for a local municipality. So you all should be very, very proud to have these folks on the team. Just a few quick remarks from me, and then I'd like to hear from everybody from the folks that I introduced. I think we need to start off with the concept tonight that life as we know it has changed. I don't think that's going to come as a surprise to hear, but I think everybody needs to realize that life is changing, and every single one of us, all ages, everyone, is going to have some life changes that we're going to need to deal with, and if we haven't already started, and I hope we've started. We're trying to continue with as much messaging in the borough of Fort Lee as we can. We have been told multiple times from the governor on down that a lot of the burden on getting the message out will be visited upon the local municipality. So I'm therefore happy to report we have a lot of means of communications here in Fort Lee. I mean, we did it to talk about events and make sure everybody attended everything from tree lightings to movies under the stars, and all of that is now very useful in light of this public health crisis. It's at this time I want to remind everybody, please, if you're not on Nixle, which is our instant text service notice service, all you need to do is text our zip code 07024, text that to 8877. Text 07024 to 8877. One last comment from me, and then I'm going to introduce the team. At this point, everything that we're doing, from closures, from practicing good hygiene, from following CDC recommendations, is our civic responsibility. And everybody needs to adhere to everything as best they possibly can. Because I'm going to tell you that if you don't, and you're not going to be happy to hear me say this, but you need to hear it, if you don't, it's selfish at this point. Because if you're not willing to take care of yourself and practice good hygiene and do what's necessary for yourself, then you need to do it for your family, for your loved ones, for your neighbors, and for everybody. Because think of it, God forbid if you're willing to take the chance and not wash your hands. God forbid if you're willing to not practice what the CDC is suggesting. If, God forbid, someone that you know contracts it, he or she might not do well with this virus. In fact, may not even survive. So it's important you do it for yourself, you do it for your loved ones, and you do it for everybody in your community. I don't mean to sound harsh, but that's how important this is at this point. At this time, I'd like to hear from everybody on our team. Welcome Al Restaino, our Borough Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think the important thing to mention in light of all the information we've been providing is that Borough Hall is still open for business, that while we've closed the doors just to eliminate the interaction between the general public, we still are here. Our phones are open. Our emails are open. We're ready to conduct business. I suggest visiting Fort Lee's website, www.fortleenj.org, where you can get a full listing of all the departments, phone numbers, contact information, and we're here to assist any way we can. We want to make this interruption of service as seamless as we possibly can.
Thank you. Thank you, Al. Now I'd like to hear from Police Chief Matt Hinsey. Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Fort Lee. Same message that we broadcasted Friday and this afternoon with OEM and EMS. Fort Lee Police Department, along with the Fort Lee Fire Department and the EMS, remain ready to respond to any and all emergencies within the borough. One thing I'd like to implore again is that residents use the 911 system appropriately, which is to report a fire, save a life, or report a crime in progress. 911 should not be used for informational purposes to seek information about COVID-19 or any other closures within the borough. Like the administrator said, please visit the website. While the borough has shut down some operations, the police department also has reduced services. That doesn't mean if you're a victim of a crime, you can get into the police station. If there's a life-threatening emergency, the police department's going to respond. Some non-essential services have been reduced, but those you can be able to get through those through either email or regular mail or telephone. So you can call the police department non-emergency number, which is 201-592-3700. Additionally, I'd just like to reiterate, if you feel you've been a victim of any type of bias harassment because of the COVID-19 health crisis, please report that incident to the police as soon as possible and be aggressively investigated. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Our OEM Director, Brian Drumgoole. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Fort Lee. The Office of Emergency Management continues to speak with our counterparts at Bergen County OEM to ensure that there is no duplication of services and to ensure that the county and state resources are available should we need them. The Office of Emergency Management is coordinating our resources with our police, fire, EMS, DPW, health department, and various other borough departments within the borough. Fort Lee, please know that the Office of Emergency Management continues to work hand in hand with Mayor Sokolich, the entire Borough Council, and the entire Borough Administration to ensure that our residents and business owners are receiving all resources possible during this public health crisis. Fort Lee, be assured that we are fully prepared for anything that comes our way, and as one strong community, we will get through this together. Stay well.
Thank you, Brian. And finally, our newest employee, and welcome again, our health officer, Jill Scarpa. Welcome, Jill.
Mayor, thank you. Social distancing has become a term that we're repeatedly hearing, and it's because it's important to remember that the main mode of spread and transmission of this virus is from person to person. So when a person infected with the virus coughs or sneezes and you're nearby, that's the chance that you're going to get to be exposed to the virus. So social distancing is keeping a distance of at least 6 feet from you and others. And only secondary is a mode of transmission by contaminated surfaces. So with that too, you want to be mindful of your hand hygiene, that you're washing your hands on a frequent basis and maintaining that. So remember, social distancing is at least 6 feet from each other. In order not to be exposed to someone's droplets should they cough or sneeze or even talking.
Great. And I know, I just want to tell the public we have a list of about a dozen pointed questions that we are going to get to that folks have sent over. And one or two of those questions actually relate to what you just touched upon, Jill. So we're going to get into that in a little more detail tonight also. And just when I thought it was impossible to not remember a series of numbers, because I've said it 1,000 times, I just want to be clear, Nixle, to sign up for Nixle, you are going to text 07024, our zip code, to 888777. That's 3 8s, 3 7s, okay? 888-777. Please text the zip code to that number. Also, we should be at a point with this public health crisis that a lot of the things we're going to talk about, you're aware of already. So we're going to try to avoid duplication and in summary fashion go through many of the things we've already done just to remind folks of where we are in Fort Lee. But I just wanted to let everybody know, if you haven't figured this out, we are on a trajectory to enter into a complete closure mode, right? First it was seniors, then it was library. So that's the direction we're going in, and we're taking our lead from other agencies, whether it's the state of New Jersey, whether it's the county of Bergen. Sometimes those directives, believe it or not, are not consistent. So Fort Lee is making sure that we're giving you as accurate a message as we possibly can. And with regard to notice, I've heard that. Wow, how come you didn't give us enough notice? You should have told us earlier. We are letting you know with videos. We're letting you know with website, press releases, everything we can. We're letting you know within minutes of us finding out. It's something that develops on a moment-by-moment basis, so we're going to give you as much notice as we can. But unfortunately, sometimes that's not a whole heck of a lot. So let's get into this in a little more detail. We know where we are. We haven't had any new reported or confirmed cases in Fort Lee. I'd like to attribute that to the vigilance of our residents and the guidance of our task force. I think we're doing a great job, and I think the public is listening to the message, so thank you, Fort Lee. But we all know, because every expert tells us, we need to stem the spread of this virus. If we do nothing, those that contract this virus, that number will spike, and potentially exponentially, and that's what we're needing to avoid. So Fort Lee, as of today, these are new closures, as Al has alluded to. We have, effective noon today, March 16, we have closed Borough Hall to the public. That's 309 Main Street. We've closed Fort Lee Police Department to public, and we've also closed the Fort Lee Building Department and Fire Prevention Bureau on Inwood Terrace to the public. Now, we will continue to staff all of those agencies with employees. Folks can call, and they can do their business online. That's fortleenj.org. fortleenj.org. That website has truly become a site with a lot of great information on it. Not only on COVID-19, how to do things with the borough, how to, everything from payment of taxes to application for permits. We've gone to great lengths to allow people to do as much as they can from their kitchen table, and that certainly is coming in handy now. Also today, the Fort Lee Parking Authority has suspended the rest of its shuttle service. Yesterday, we announced that the free shuttle service to the Edgewater Ferry was suspended. We also announced that other shuttle services were suspended. As of today, all shuttle services in Fort Lee that are sponsored by either the borough or the parking authority are suspended. Now, I'm going to say 14 days, but as I've told you repeatedly, that's a minimum number. And we do anticipate this health crisis to last longer than that. Some experts would say a lot longer than that. Now, this suspension also includes transport by the parking authority of Fort Lee senior citizens to their regularly scheduled non-emergent medical appointments. And again, non-emergent medical appointments. Anyone experiencing symptoms or in need of emergency transport are directed to dial 911, and in that case, transport will be provided. As the chief will remind you, and Brian as well, during the course of the call, anybody that makes that call needs to be specific.
Yes, Mayor, yes. So if you're calling 911 and you're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 or have been self-quarantining for any number of days, and whether you require emergency related to COVID-19 or any other emergency, whether it be police, fire, or ambulance, the dispatchers are going to ask you a series of questions to ensure that the responders are taking the proper precautions when they respond to your emergency. So please be patient with them, answer the questions to the best of your ability, and we'll do everything I can to get the resources out to you appropriately and to make sure your emergency is handled properly.
Thank you, Chief. Brian.
And Fort Lee, and just to reiterate what the chief and the mayor have said, and that's to make sure that our first responders are staying well, because it's imperative that our first responders stay well so that we can provide any services that we need to you with no interruption of services.
Thank you, Brian. Now, these closures that we've just articulated for you are in addition to the closures that we've already implemented. As everybody is aware, the entire Fort Lee public school system is closed for on-site learning and is now converted to off-site learning. Number one. That would also include all school playgrounds and facilities. That's important to point out. For example, the School 4 playground, that's off limits. The Board of Education is closed, all the playgrounds and those facilities as well, and that's per the recommendations of the experts. The Fort Lee Public Library, the building itself and all of its vast amount of activities is likewise suspended. And again, I'm going to say for 14 days, but that time period will continue to be assessed as that time period transpires. The Fort Lee Recreation Department, and with that Recreation Department, that would include borough parks, that would include youth sports, that would include the Recreation Center, the Youth Center, and also the Jack Alter Community Center, also closed for a period of 14 days. And again, that period will be reassessed as well. Obviously, we're not going to reopen things. Number one, they're not going to be reopened earlier, but when we do reinstitute all of these departments and agencies, you will have ample notice to know when that will happen. And as you already know, our Fort Lee Senior Center has been closed for quite a few days at this point. The Fort Lee Senior Center is closed to the public, number one, and all of the senior activities are have likewise been suspended, our seniors being most vulnerable group. Rest assured, the task force has spent quite a bit of time on making sure that they are taken care of. Meals on Wheels is providing meals to those that qualify. And we're taking all the necessary steps to make sure that they stay healthy. Safety and health is paramount. Which brings me to the next point. This is Fort Lee, New Jersey. Contact your neighbors. Give them a call. Stay in touch with the seniors. Stay in touch with a friend that might not have a lot of family, or a gentleman or a young lady or someone that might be having difficulty getting through all of this. I know I've had that own experience myself, and I reach out periodically, and I could tell you that just reaching out to a friend or to a relative or to a senior, just hearing someone else's voice, knowing other people are out there, is going to go a long way to help those folks get through this. Now, we're going to reach a point also where everything in Fort Lee will probably ultimately be closed, so we're not going to have to articulate each and every specific closure, but right now, again, basically what's open is online services through the borough. Check fortleennj.org for that information. We are staffing the buildings, and we'll see how long we could do that. I can also want to report to the public that today, the governor of the state of New Jersey entered Executive Order number 104. He's already declared a state of emergency here in the state of New Jersey, and that is statewide. That impacts and applies to the borough of Fort Lee. And I just want to review with the public what that says. Number one, all gatherings of persons in the state of New Jersey shall be limited to 50 persons or fewer. This is not a suggestion. This is not a recommendation. This is not a pretty please do it. This is an absolute unconditional no gatherings of 50 persons or no gatherings of 50 persons or more. Now, this